White. From the Darkness Cometh the Light, or Struggles for Freedom, by Lucy Ann Delaney. Chapter 7. For years afterward, I became the wife of Zachariah Delaney of Cincinnati, with whom I have had a happy married life, continuing 42 years. 4 children were born to us, and many were the plans we mapped out for their future, but 2 of our little girls were called from us while still in their childhood. My remaining daughter attained the age of 22 years and left life behind, while the brightest of prospects was hers. And my son, in the fullness of a promising youth at the age of 24, turned his face to the wall. So my cup of bitterness was full to the brim and overflowing. Yet one consolation was always mine. Our children were born free and died free. Their childhood and my maternity were never shadowed with a thought of separation. The grim reaper did not spare them, but they were as treasures laid up in heaven. Such a separation one could accept from the hand of God with humble submission, for He calleth His own. Mother always made her home with me until the day of her death. She had lived to see the joyful time when her race was made free, her chains struck off, and their right to their own flesh and blood lawfully acknowledged. Her life, so full of sorrow, was ended, full of years and surrounded by many friends, both black and white, who recognized and appreciated her sufferings and sacrifices, and rejoiced that her old age was spent in freedom and plenty. The azure vault of heaven bends over us all, and the gleaming moonlight brightens the marble tablet which marks her last resting place. To fame and fortune unknown, but in the eyes of Him who judgeth us, hers was a heroism which outvied the most famous. I frequently thought of Father and wondered if he were alive or dead, and at the time of the great exodus of Negroes from the South a few years ago, a large number arrived in St. Louis and were cared for by the colored people of that city. They were sheltered in churches, halls, and private houses until such time as they could pursue their journey. Methought, I will find him in this motley crowd of all ages, from the crowing babe in its mother's arms to the aged and decrepit on whom the marks of slavery were still visible. I piled inquiry upon inquiry, until after long and persistent search I learned that my father had always lived on the same plantation 15 miles from Vicksburg. I wrote to my father and begged him to come and see me and make his home with me, sent him the money so he would be to no expense, and when he finally reached St. Louis, it was with great joy that I received him. Old, grizzled, and gray, time had dealt hardly with him, and he looked very little like the dapper master's valet whose dark beauty won my mother's heart. 45 years of separation, hard work, rough times, and heart longings had perseveringly performed its work, and instead of a man bearing his years with upright vigor, he was made prematurely old by the accumulation of troubles. My sister Nancy came from Canada, and we had a most joyful reunion, and only the absence of our mother left a vacuum, which we deeply and sorrowfully felt. Father could not be persuaded to stay with us when he found his wife dead. He longed to get back to his old associations of 45 years standing. He felt like a stranger in a strange land, and taking pity on him, I urged him no more, but let him go, though with great reluctance. There are, abounding in public and private libraries of all sorts, lives of people which fill our minds with amazement, admiration, sympathy, and indeed with as many feelings as there are people, so I can scarcely expect that the reader of these episodes of my life will meet with more than a passing interest, but as such, I will commend it to your thought for a brief hour. To be sure, I am deeply sensible that this story, as written, is not a very striking performance, but I have brought you with me face to face with but only a few of the painful facts engendered by slavery, and the rest can be drawn from history. Just have patience a little longer, and I have done. I became a member of the Methodist Episcopal Church in 1855, was elected president of the first colored society, called the Female Union, which was the first ever organized exclusively for women, was elected president of a society known as the Daughters of Zion, Was matron of Salome Court No. 2, 3 years in succession. Was most ancient matron of the Grand Court of Missouri, of which only the wives of Masons are allowed to become members. I am, at present, past Grand Chief Preceptress of the Daughters of the Tabernacle and Knights of Tabor, and also was secretary and am still a member of Colonel Shaw Women's Relief Corps No. 34, auxiliary to the Colonel Shaw Post 343, Grand Army of the Republic. Considering the limited advantages offered me, I have made the best use of my time, and what few talents the Lord has bestowed on me, I have not hidden in a napkin, but used them for His glory and to benefit those for whom I live. And what better can we do than to live for others? Except for the deceitfulness of riches, nothing is so illusory as the supposition of interest we assume that our readers may feel in our affairs. But if this sketch is taken up for just a moment of your life, it may settle the problem in your mind, if not in others: can the Negro race succeed proportionately as well as the whites, if given the same chance and an equal start? The hours are growing shorter for the millions who are toiling, and the homes are growing better for the millions yet to be. And we all shall learn the lesson, how that waste and sin are spoiling the fairest and the finest of a grand humanity. It is coming, and men's thoughts are growing deeper. They are giving of their millions as they never gave before. They are learning the new gospel. Man must be his brother's keeper, and right, not might, shall triumph, and the selfish rule no more. Finis. End of section 7. Recording by James K. White, Chula Vista. End of From the Darkness Cometh the Light, or Struggles for Freedom, by Lucy Ann Delaney.